Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sip of Tea, where we give you just a little sip of the small businesses that you can support this weekend, whether they are small businesses that sell a product or a service. Today, I have at one of my absolutely favorite people, Alison Ver Halen. I love Alison. I love what she does. And of course, I'm going to let her tell you about it. So thank you so much for coming today, Alison.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tiffany, and thank you for that wonderful intro. That was lovely.
Thank you.
So, I am Alison Ver Halen. I own AV Writing Services. As it says in the title, it is a service-based business. I am a content marketer and SEO strategist. I write the words that go onto people's websites that tell people who they are, what they do, and how they can help them. So that is everything from the website landing pages, your sales pages, to your newsletter, to your blog, which is super important for showing up in online searches. More than 95% of people are using search engines like Google to try and find small businesses. And the blog also helps convert the leads who find your website into customers, especially if you're in a B2B industry or a professional services industry. On average, people are going to go through 3 to 5 pieces of content before making a purchasing decision, and they're going to go straight to your blog to get that information, to get that buy-in and make sure you really know what you're talking about. So for people who know they need to be blogging for their business, but they don't know what to blog about, they don't have time, they hate blogging, they should reach out to me at AV Writing Services.
Absolutely, and you should. We love Alison at the Executive Assistant. We are in the process of forming a partnership with her because although we will write a blog for a customer, we do not focus on SEO. It's not a skill that we have, but it is a skill that our collaborator has. And that's what's really important. I met Alison at a networking event, and I like to align my network with people whose businesses align with mine. And we were able to find a point of collaboration. And that is why she's one of my absolute favorite people. So when we talk about SEO, just for the record, because for me, it took me a while to figure out what SEO was even about. It stands for search engine optimization. And search engine optimization is really important in being visible. And it's so important for your business to be visible. You can't just be LinkedIn famous or Facebook famous and actually expect your business to thrive, because it won't. At some point, you have to reach outside of your circle and start pulling in people from other spaces. SEO is an amazing way to do that. And actually, Alison, I'd love if you would talk about the blog post you recently posted when you were talking about why you shouldn't write your own blog. I think was the name of that one. I would love to hear you tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that was actually a client success story. That was my very first client way back in, I think it was 2011. He was an attorney. He has since retired, but he hired me all the way up until he retired a few years ago because he just loved what I brought to him for his blog posts. And before he brought me on, he was writing his own blog posts. So he offered me the gig, and I started looking through his existing blog posts to get a feel for what kind of topics I would be covering, the kind of tone and voice that I would need to use to write these blog posts. And I could not get through this blog post. It started out fairly strong and then jumped to something completely different partway through, and then something else entirely a little bit later on. And it was completely unintelligible. Now, like I said, this guy is an attorney. So not only is he not a stupid man, he has strong writing skills, right? Mm-hmm. Attorneys spend a lot of their days reading and writing, but there's a difference between writing a complaint that gets filed in a courtroom versus writing a blog post that actually speaks to your target audience, engages them, and leads them through the buyer journey. So if I had been a prospect looking at this blog post, I would not have finished reading it. I would have said, okay, thanks, I'm going to find what I need somewhere else because this is not helpful to me. Yeah. So I was like, yes, I can write blog posts for you because I know I can do better than this.
I love it.
So yeah, I would write like 2 to 4 blog posts a month for him. And after 6 months, he said I had brought in more than $75,000 worth of business for his law
Woo!
firm just through the blog posts.
Say that
So
number again, Allison. Say it with some pride.
$75,000,
Yeah.
6 months.
And that's why you hire Alison Ver Halen. That's $150,000 a year, people. Pay attention. It's a lot of
And I don't
revenue.
charge $150,000 a year, just to make that clear.
Allison actually has some of the best affordable pricing that we have seen. She's the only person that I've ever met who does the type of work that she does, whose prices are comparable to ours. So I'm gonna leave that alone. Um, we won't get into pricing. That's something that if you'd like to know about pricing, you can schedule a consultation with Allison. Um, but we're gonna get a little bit into SEO. And can you tell us, simple folk, um, something that makes us understand SEO a little better and how to understand it at all?
So SEO is all about attracting the people who are already looking for you. If you think about it from the user's perspective, whether you need something specific or you just want some more information on something, you're most likely going to go to Google to figure out what it is. You might have a couple other search engines you use, whether it's Bing or DuckDuckGo, or even if you just go straight to your social media channel. But the point is you are using a search engine, and Google is by far the largest search engine out there. So when we talk about SEO, most of the time we talk about Google. So when I talk about keywords, and I talk about keywords a lot, because that's what people are using. That's what they're putting into that search bar to try and find something. So Google is going to look at that, and it's going to look at the keywords, all of the words. Google knows everything. It will look at all of the words in your content to try and find that match. Now, there's a lot more that goes into SEO, and I want to say, stop me if I'm boring you, or if your eyes start to cross because you don't understand what I'm saying. But I could talk about SEO all day long. Google, I want to say a year or two ago, launched what they called their EAT standards. EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So it's much more than just what are the keywords in your content. Google wants to know more about your website, wants to know more about you. Do you have the credentials to talk about what you're talking about? And if we are talking about something like, I think they call it YOLO, your money or your life, those, whether you're in financial services or the any kind of healthcare or nutrition, or anytime you're giving people health tips, that's when Google is really careful about who they put on the first page of their search results, because they don't want to get sued for putting some quack up there, right? So those industries in particular tend to have a really hard time getting on the first page of Google. And every time Google updates their algorithm, their traffic gets wonky, because Google is trying to figure out who's trustworthy and who's not. But at the same time, people are searching for this information. They want to know the best recipes with quinoa. They want to know the benefits of a vegan diet, right? So they're searching for these things, and Google wants to pair them with the content that they're looking for, but also make sure that it's high quality content. So Google is going to make sure that you have the right credentials, that you are established as an authority in your industry, which is where backlinks come in. That is what other people are saying about you online. It's not just you talking about yourself. It's what are other people linking back to your website? Are other people talking about you? They don't even need to link back to you. If they just mention your name or your company's name on their website, Google takes note of that too, because again, Google knows all.
So does that mean that, so a lot of times in business, we end up networking a lot. We end up meeting collaborators a lot. And so if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, that means that all of that stuff is important there. If I write a blog post about the fact that we did this interview, I need to make sure that I'm tagging you appropriately, etc., as far as the backlinks go, because at the end of the day, like, that's going to help establish your credibility. And then on the flip side, if you were to do a blog post about this interview, you would want to make sure that you're mentioning me properly, and that helps with my credibility. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. That's crazy. I did not know. I know that's just like a sip of what SEO is all about, but I did not even know that much of it. And it just boggles my mind. I did not know that it was that intensive. And that's just on Google. That's not even talking about SEO on YouTube and other social media sites like Pinterest. And I guess Pinterest is not a social media site anymore, right? It's a search engine now.
Oh, that's right. I think they changed that. Well,
Right.
and keep in mind that YouTube is owned by Google.
Well, there you go, people. There it is. And I forgot that, but it is, because if I log out of my Google account, I cannot get into my YouTube. It's crazy. And when I
Yeah.
changed my name on my Gmail account, I had to change, in order to change the name on my YouTube account, I had to change the name on my Gmail account, or it wouldn't have said the executive assistant. It would have said Tiffany Banks.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to change my name on my Gmail to say the executive assistant. I never made the connection that they were owned. How crazy is that? You learn something new every day when you have an expert like Alison there. So, what type of services do you offer? I know that you do, a wide range of things. So let's say, what are the three most requested services from your clients?
Blog posts are probably my number one. And I do tend to promote those pretty heavily just because that is something that is constant. I do, like I said, I do website landing pages, and that sometimes that's a one-off project and that's fine. And sometimes we do the landing pages when people are starting up a website, and then they also need a blog, and then they hire me on the regular basis for a blog. But it's hard if you haven't tried to keep up with a blog on a regular schedule and keep posting new content. And that also affects Google. Both Google and your readers are going to look at that date on the published blog post and see, when was this published last? And if it hasn't been published since last April, they're going to go, well, is someone still behind this website anymore? If they don't really care about their blog, how much are they going to care about me as their client? So that's what I tend to focus on, is the blogging, and like I said, the SEO. And the SEO can be worked into the blog. I do charge a little bit higher if you want a blog post with the SEO. If you just want the blog post by itself, it's a little bit cheaper, but that's where the keyword research tends to come in. I also have a content calendar that I am promoting right now, actually. It is a list of 8 different blog post topics. That's where I do the research and find out, what are people searching for related to your industry that has not already been covered to death by everyone else online? It's about finding those content gaps so that when people are searching for you, you have a better chance of showing up in those searches. And solves a problem that a lot of people struggle with as small business owners. They know they need to blog, they just don't know what to blog about. So that's where I do the research. And yeah, I do the topics as well as a list of keywords telling you what words and phrases you should use in those blog posts. So that's for people who want to do it themselves. They just don't know what to blog about. So I am offering that. And then I also have my blogging accountability group, which is $19 per month. It's on Facebook, and that is an accountability group / training. That is where Monday we ask you what your goals are. Tuesday, I provide a video based on what you said your goals are, telling you how you can, just giving tips on how you can achieve those goals. And I'm always available in the group to ask questions. Wednesday, we have a power hour to work on those goals. And then Friday, we do check-in. Did you achieve those goals? And we do that every week. So for right now, I don't know how you feel about me being promotional in this video, but I'm going to take the opportunity and go for it.
And actually, one of our questions is typically, what services are you promoting for Small Business Saturday? So go for it.
There we go. So right now through the end of 2020, if you buy an editorial calendar, which is $300, you get 6 months of membership in my blogging accountability group for free. So
nice. I love it. That's a heck of a steal. I will say the executive assistant has set up their blog. It's called the Tea Kettle, but it is hidden on our website because the executive assistant has not written a single blog post yet.
Because is it hidden or unpublished?
It is hidden and unpublished.
Okay.
All of the above. But it's like we kind of like figured out the name of it. It's gonna be the Tea Kettle.
I like that name.
Yeah, the executive assistant is big on branding. That's why we have coffee with tea and lunch with tea and cocktails with tea and the tea kettle and sip of tea. Like we're big on branding. So with that being said, we decided to blog. We said we were going to do it, but then we started thinking about topics. And this is another question that I actually wanted to ask you. And I wanted to ask you this because when you told me about it, I was kind of surprised. So let's talk about the length of an effective blog post. Because I think that people sometimes think that a long social media post would make a good blog. And that's not always necessarily true, is it, Allison?
Not necessarily, no. So for SEO purposes, when it comes to blog posts, I normally recommend 500 words as a minimum. And just to give you an idea, if you're writing up in a Word document, that's about 1 page, single spaced in a Word document. That's the minimum. And I know a lot of people are still using that as their rule for SEO, but that was the rule like 4 or 5 years ago. And it keeps getting longer, and you need to keep writing longer and longer content in order to show up on the first page of Google. So last I checked, it was more like 1,750 some words is like the average length of the blog posts that show up on the first page of Google. And that's a lot. That's
1,700 words. How is Google deciding that this is what the norm should be? Because as a consumer, I'm not going to read 1,700 words. I'm going to read what you said in the beginning, and then I'm going to skim it for whatever interests me. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom of it and see how it finishes out and what I need to do next to get what I need. So how is this number becoming, how is it decided?
So from Google's perspective, again, it comes down to the keywords. If you're using particular keywords in your content, you can have it in a blog post a lot more times without keyword stuffing. Keyword stuffing is where you have executive assistant you can find here because we're executive assistants who are awesome because we're executive assistants. That is keyword stuffing, and no one likes that. Don't do that. That works back in the old days, in the very early days of SEO. It does not work anymore, and you can get banned from Google for that. But if you have a nice long, Google will punish you. So if you have a long piece of content, on the one hand, you can get your keywords in there a lot more often without resorting to keyword stuffing. You can also really dive in depth into a particular topic. And that's, again, where the expertise, the authority, the trustworthiness comes in. You demonstrate all that with this really in-depth content that it demonstrates that a lot of people do love this, and actually a lot of people, the data shows that people tend to spend more time on the longer blog posts and are more likely to engage with those blog posts and share them. So, and I know I'm with you as a consumer. I'm like, I don't have time to read that much. And honestly, I don't. But if you are writing blog posts that long, I do tend to write blog posts that long, but I have a table of contents at the top with links to where you want to go within that. So if you see something about like how to write a blog, and I'm like, here's how your topic, and you're like, yeah, no, I don't care about that. Tell me, what keywords I should be using. Then keywords will be a different headline, and you can click on that and go straight to that section.
That's brilliant. So that's a technique in blogging, actually.
That's a technique, and using those subheadings, not just as a table of content, but also as a way to break it up. So that even if you don't have that at the top, but if people are, like you said, scrolling through, skimming through to see what they need, use that subheading to make it really obvious. This is what this section is about. This is what we're talking about right here. So that when someone sees something specific to what they need, they'll stop and read that part and engage with that part of it. So yeah, it is kind of a catch-22 between what Google wants and what are people actually doing with that content, and how are they engaging with it? And yeah, most of the time they are going to be skimming in it. So plan for that. Make your content really skimmable so that people can just go through it and find what they need.
So that leads me to wonder, because this is a whole job. Like writing a blog this is a whole job. What are the benefits of posting blogs to your website? Like, why would somebody want to do that?
It drives traffic to your website. And it positions you as an authority. If you're constantly putting out content about a particular aspect of your industry or teaching people how to do stuff, then you become known both with Google and with your target audience as the go-to person who knows all this stuff. And again, when people, again, especially if you're in a B2B or professional services industry, people are going to look for that buy-in to make sure that you really know what you're talking about. And they're going to go straight to your blog to get that. We do like to work with people we know, like, and trust. And obviously networking is a big part of that. But your blog can also be a big part of that. That's, again, that's where you display your expertise, and you can also show off some of your personality. Yep. You can talk a little bit about your personal backstory, about your history, about how you got into this and why it's important to you, to really get that engagement and get them to connect with you on a personal level so that they'll want to work with you, in addition to understanding that you actually know what you're talking about.
That's an amazing answer, and I love it. Alison, I could ask you a million more questions, but I'm just going to ask, how can people get in touch with you?
So I am at avwritingservices.com. You can check out all my services there, and my email address is info@avwritingservices.com. You can find me as Alison Ver Halen on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Awesome, 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 and awesome. One very, very last question. We have been talking this week about how small business is what actually stimulates our economy. It's not the big businesses. Even the big businesses, when they go out and get business, they're trying to get it from the small businesses. So with that being said, and with you being a small business owner, how does somebody spending money with you affect you, as opposed to if they were to go and spend it with a big company?
Well, it allows me to pay my bills, which I super appreciate. And that's, again, taking that money that I get and turning it around and putting it back into the economy in other ways with the products and services that I need to live as well as to run my business. And I am also, I don't currently have any employees, but I am looking, long-term goals, looking to add to my team and have people that I manage and write stuff and create other content, and hopefully web designers for me. So that would be a great way to, again, help stimulate the economy and produce jobs that don't currently exist.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Alison, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today. We want to thank you for joining us on Sip of Tea. Thank you all for watching. You have a great rest of your week, and we will see you very, very soon with another small business owner.